phones emit low-level radiation. The question is, could they cause cancer? For decades, Health Canada has said there is no concrete proof, no reason for concern. But now, a small step in that direction, particularly for kids. In a press release today, Health Canada encourages parents to reduce their children's RF exposure from cell phones, since children are typically more sensitive to a variety of environmental agents. It's a message parents in other countries have been getting for years. The UK, Germany, Belgium, Israel, Russia, and India have all warned that kids, even teens, should limit their cell phone use. And what's the advice for adults? Health Canada now reminds cell phone users that they can take practical measures to reduce RF exposure, such as limit the length of calls or use text messages or hands-free devices instead. Cutting back might be hard. There are more than 24 million cell phones in Canada, and a lot of those users are kids.
My first one, I would probably about 8, 11-ish.
The wireless industry was not available for interviews, but issued a statement basically repeating what it's always said, like this comment by Bernard Lord last spring.
We abide by those the standards that are set, and we fully believe that the products that we have that are safe.
On its website, Health Canada has always advised these measures if you're one of those people who are concerned. Now it's encouraging everyone to take these precautions. So does that mean Health Canada is now concerned? Well, no one would talk to me on camera, but on the phone, a spokesperson didn't really answer, just said the science is still inconclusive. You know, they aren't the only ones to be quietly suggesting people pay attention. Peter, I have a question for you. Have you ever read all the fine print in the booklets that come with cell phones?
The truth, no.
Probably most people are like you. This is the BlackBerry manual. It says to hold the device an inch away from your body when the device is turned on. The iPhone manual says to hold that device 5/8 of an inch away from your head when you're making a call. Who does that? And yet it's in most of these books. Like Health Canada, they're trying to offer helpful information and also making sure that they can't be accused of not telling you that this could be an issue.
That we need to find a way to have a 21st century plan of which whatever metering technology is chosen is so attractive and so proven safe that people will opt into that rather than having to opt out. So the Green Party is calling on BC Hydro to help the installation of wireless smart meters, to put in plan a long-term energy plan that is one that is discussed in consultation with the people of British Columbia, and where people have an ability to say no to something that they think is in a detriment to themselves and their families. Thank you.
I'd like to thank James Stokes there speaking. Second up, we have Dr. Magda Plus, Associate Professor from Trent University.
Thank you very much. I'm going to be making 5 key points about related to the health effects of radio frequency radiation. The first point is that smart meters generate 2 types of radiation. One is microwave radiation that comes through the air, and the other is dirty electricity that comes through wires. Both of these have been shown to have adverse health effects. The type of radiation coming through the air is pulse, which means there's a very high peak and then it drops down low. And most of the science that I've been able to access shows that pulse radiation is much more harmful than continuous wave radiation. The smart meters in British Columbia are going to be meshed, which means they're talking to each other. And if you happen to be the collector side, if you happen to have a smart meter that's a collector side on your home, you're going to be sending not only your information but information from other smart meters, which will increase your exposure and the frequency of the pulses that you're going to be exposed to. The smart meters are operating 24/7, and you can't get away from them. This is new technology, and there have been no studies looking at the long-term health effects of smart meters that are on your home. And so we have to rely on other types of research that deals with cell phones or cell phone antennas or Wi-Fi, wireless baby monitors to tell us what is likely to happen with smart meter devices on your home. Point number 2. The World Health Organization in May of this year came out with a statement that radio frequency radiation from cell phones, from smart meters, from Wi-Fi is a possible human carcinogen. That just came out very recently. And so you're going to have a device on your home that generates a possible human carcinogenic substance. Every home is going to have smart meters, and I think this is where you have to have a choice as to whether or not you're exposed to this wireless radiation. Point number 3. In addition to cancer, there are a lot of other health effects that have been associated with wireless technology. The meters affect reproduction. It's been shown that sperm are affected by this radiation, which could have long-term effects on reproduction. We have no idea how the human egg cell is affected, but if it is affected, then we're talking about the potential for generations of a response. We have evidence that it affects the heart. Individuals who are electrically sensitive have heart palpitations when they're exposed to this radiation, and this can be quite serious if you also have underlying heart disease. We have evidence that there's a growing number of individuals who are experiencing electrical hypersensitivity. Their symptoms are variable. They include poor sleep, difficulty thinking, chronic pain, chronic fatigue, mood disorders, dizziness, nausea, tinnitus. So a lot of different symptoms fall into this particular category. And instead of calling it electrical hypersensitivity, I call it rapid aging syndrome, because the symptoms that you experience are those that we experience as we age. The major difference between real aging and electrical hypersensitivity is when you're not exposed to the radiation, your symptoms diminish or they disappear entirely. We think that electrical hypersensitivity is affecting at least 3% of the Canadian population, which is close to 1 million individuals. The analogy that I'd like to present to you about how relatively harmful smart meters are compared to other technologies is the analogy related to cigarette smoking. Smoking a cigarette is like using your cell phone. You're exposed to the radiation firsthand, and that's likely to be much more damaging than secondhand smoke. But having a smart meter in your home is like being exposed to secondhand smoke because it is a possible human carcinogen. Point number 4, what does the future hold in store for us? Initially, it starts with monitoring electricity. In Ontario, they're beginning to monitor water, and eventually they will begin to monitor gas. And so you're going to have levels of radiation increasing in your home every single time a new wireless monitoring system is devised. In addition to that, we're going to have what's called smart appliances, which means you're going to replace the fridge, the refrigerator, the air conditioning unit you have in your home, so that it can also communicate with the smart meter devices, and that's going to increase your level of radiation again. So the secondhand smoke level analogy means that our levels of radiation are constantly going to go up and up and up. And the final point I would like to make is that there is an alternative to wireless smart meters, and that is to put the radiation on the wire. You can use electrical wires, you can use your phone line, you can use cable, or you can have a dedicated wired system in your home. And I think it's extremely important to give people a choice, particularly if they're electrically sensitive, particularly if you have young people in your home, because they're much more sensitive to this radiation. If you have an impaired immune system, or you're elderly, you're already dealing with cancer and other health problems, then I think it's absolutely mandatory that you be exposed to as little radiation as possible. And you can only do that if we oppose the wireless smart meters and go to something that's wired and doesn't cause the problems. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Havas. I'd like to next give a warm welcome to Elizabeth May from the Federal Green Party.
I'll try to keep my remarks very brief so that we have time for questions for all of you, and thank you for coming. And also, I'll add a bit in French for mes amis en français. As the federal leader of the Green Party of Canada and member of Parliament for Saanich Gulf Islands, BC Hydro's plans are not in my jurisdiction. I am, though, a BC Hydro customer. I'm a British Columbia resident. And I'm very grateful to Jane Stark, leader of the Green Party of British Columbia, for the political courage to say that this is an issue. And those people who may be fighting a fairly lonely battle to tell BC Hydro that they don't want a wireless smart meter on their home, that they have an ally in the sensible policies of the Green Party of British Columbia. There's no question that the evidence around electromagnetic frequency remains controversial. The International Agency for Research on Cancer is a branch of the World Health Organization, as Dr. Havas has just said, has upgraded their concern to say this is a Class 2B carcinogen. which means that they're looking at the evidence more seriously. But when you look at the kind of mounting evidence, and this is where epidemiology around new technologies is always slower to react. There's a lag time. And in the same way that when my grandfather first died of lung cancer, it was still controversial to say that cigarette smoking had caused the lung cancer. And in the same way that when I was fighting Agent Orange, Health Canada made it very clear that there was absolutely nothing wrong with Agent Orange, and the people in my community were being silly in thinking that we should oppose it. It takes a while sometimes for the evidence to pile up. But the epidemiological work around cell phone use has been around for some time. Leading epidemiologists from Sweden, particularly Dr. Hardell and Dr. Eriksson, said many years ago that they were seeing a link between cell phone use and brain cancer. It was subsequent to that that I read in The Lancet, the British Medical Journal, was saying, look, the evidence is not yet so clear that we should say that cell phones should be banned. But as a matter of precaution, we do say, and this was an editorial in The Lancet more than a decade ago, that children and adolescents should not be using cell phones. So for those who say that there is no health evidence whatsoever about electromagnetic frequency, they're simply indulging in either wishful thinking or willful blindness. There is evidence. It falls short of the level of being so conclusive that you would take immediate action to ban this technology. But sensible use and precaution is required, particularly for those who are sensitive, particularly for children, and particularly in an instance like this, where BC Hydro has a monopoly and is giving its customers no choice. So it can become commercialized and competitive more quickly. So going to what Jane is saying about the need for the whole system to be smart, we're starting at the wrong end. We're installing a particular type of smart meter.
Live blood analysis and electrosmog. We can learn much by looking at our blood under a microscope. This short video shows a macrophage, which is like a vacuum cleaner, engulfing bacteria among red blood cells. I decided to find out what my blood looked like. I pricked my finger, placed a drop of blood on a slide, and looked at it under the microscope. This is what I saw. The cells are round, some are separate, and a few are sticking together. Overall, fairly healthy looking blood. This testing was done in a clean electromagnetic environment, and I did not eat or drink before or during testing. I then worked on a computer for 70 minutes and looked at my blood again. This time, the cells are sticking together like stacked coins. This is called rouleau formation. Later that day, I used a cordless phone for 10 minutes and looked at my blood again. And this is what I saw. Very unhealthy looking blood. There are virtually no single cells. Most of the cells are now in rouleau formation. A doctor told me this is what she sees with cancer patients. What I learned is that my blood goes into rouleau formation when I use a computer or a mobile phone. This type of clumping interferes with the release of oxygen and the removal of waste products like carbon dioxide.
The capillaries are so narrow that red cells must squeeze through in single file, showing the importance of their elasticity.
What are the consequences of rouleau formation? Poor circulation resulting in lower oxygen transport to cells and reduced waste removal. What are the symptoms someone may experience? Headaches and fatigue, difficulty concentrating, numbness, tingling, and cold extremities, and possibly heart and blood pressure problems, including risk of stroke. What is the significance of this? Live blood analysis may be a good diagnostic for electrohypersensitivity.
Getting a little bit higher too. 582, 600, 603, 654. That's interesting. 700. This is wild. 860. 900. 850. 935. 800. 932. 945. 1060. 1057. 1092. 1084. 1065. 1049. 1028. 940. 950. 750. It's coming down now. Now 1007. 1041. 1008. Okay, I'm going to stop it now.
I'm going to just show where this is the smart meter.
I'm David Carpenter. I'm a public health physician. I graduated from Harvard Medical School, and I worked for the New York State Department of Health for 18 years. During that period of time, I was responsible for administering a program in electromagnetic fields. I subsequently became the Dean of the School of Public Health, and presently I'm a faculty member in the School of Public Health and the Director of the Institute for Health and the Environment at the University of Albany.
Thank you. And Central Maine Power says there is no reason to be concerned about smart meters. There are no health effects, and everyone who's worried about health effects of RF from smart meters or from the mesh network really has nothing to be concerned about. And what do you say to that?
I say that's absolutely false. The question to ask them is, what is the evidence that smart meters are safe and have no adverse health effects? And the answer to that question is that there is no such evidence. And in fact, while no one has actually done human health studies in relation to people living in homes with smart meters, we have evidence from a whole variety of sources of radio frequency exposure that demonstrates convincingly and consistently that exposure to radio frequency radiation at elevated levels for long periods of time increases the risk of cancer, increases the damage to the nervous system, causes electrosensitivity, has adverse reproductive effects, and a variety of other effects on different organ systems. So there is no reason for no justification for the statement that smart meters have no adverse health effects. Well, it should be up to each individual to identify whether or not they want to be continuously exposed 24/7 to elevated levels of radio frequency radiation. The smart meter is for the benefit of the utility, saves them money because they don't have to then have people going out reading the meters. And it's at the expense of the consumer who has to live in the house that has this constant exposure. So an informed person should demand that they be allowed to keep their analog meter.
Over 2,000 megawatts when it reads 1. And the smart meter is located right outside a bedroom window.
Voici les nouveaux compteurs intelligents d'Hydro-Québec qui permettent de faire des relevés en tout temps, à distance. Ces compteurs-là émettent des micro-ondes 24 heures sur 24,